2017 terrorist attacks had been previously raised by this committee in our reports on the 7/7 attacks and on the killing of Fusilier Lee Rigby. We've previously made recommendations in all of these areas, yet the government failed to act on them.
There's particular focus on opportunities which were missed to prevent the Manchester Arena explosion. MI5 has accepted its mistake in failing to track the bomber, Salman Abedi. They were aware of him, but were too slow to deal with his case. And with no travel restrictions imposed, he was able to return undetected from Libya days before the attack. Abedi was never referred to the government's anti-radicalisation programme, Prevent, and was able to visit another extremist in prison. Robby Potter was gravely injured in the attack, left in a coma with shrapnel removed from his heart. Today, he's on the mend, but angry at the revelations.
This is something that could have been stopped. End of. This did not have to happen. Every alarm bell was ringing.
You feel let down?
I am a bit, yeah. There was enough warning signs. It wasn't just like one hoax call to him. There was enough warning signs. They should be took to court. Yeah, I've said it. They should be took to court now. They're just as guilty. That could have been stopped.
MI5?
Yeah.
Olivia Campbell-Hardy loved dancing with her grandfather, Steve. The 15-year-old was one of 22 people killed at Manchester Arena.
She's everywhere in her house, as you can tell and see, and always in our thoughts.
Steve feels Olivia's loss every day, but doesn't blame the security services.
I don't hold them to task over it, because nobody, like I say, goes to work to do a bad job of anything. But if they're admitting failures, then they must be learning lessons and they must be improving security. They must be tightening things up, especially on people leaving the country and coming back, where they've been, what's happened to them. You know, if they're looking at things like that, that's a lesson to go for.
The Home Office and other agencies are said to have made a litany of errors in the Parsons Green tube attack, which will require a further review. The government says it's doing everything it can to tackle the evolving threat of terrorism. Judith Moritz, BBC News.
The detective leading the investigation into the Russian chemical poisonings in Salisbury has told the BBC that the amount of nerve agent found in a fake perfume bottle could have killed thousands of people. BBC Panorama also spoke with Detective Sergeant Nick Bailey, the police officer who was poisoned while investigating the attempted murder of the former Russian spy Sergei Skripal and his daughter Yulia. Speaking publicly for the first time, he said he was petrified when he was told by doctors that he had the nerve agent in his system. Panorama's Jane Corbin has this exclusive report.
Salisbury, Wiltshire. In March this year, the city became the epicentre of a deadly attack. 2 Russian assassins were sent to kill former Russian spy Sergei Skripal with lethal nerve agent Novichok. He and his daughter Yulia were discovered critically ill in the city centre. But one of the police officers investigating the crime would become a victim too.
We had to make sure that there was no other casualties in the house or anything in the house that was vital for us to find out what had actually happened to them.
Detective Sergeant Nick Bailey was the first person to go to the Skripals' home that night. He was wearing a full forensic suit when he entered their house, and everything appeared normal.
Once I'd come back from the house, the Skripals' house, my eyes were like my pupils were like pinpricks. And I was quite sweaty and hot. At the time, I put that down to being tired and stressed.
Nick Bailey, too, had come into contact with the Novichok. It's like oil, sinking through porous surfaces, and it's spread by touch. Just a few milligrams can kill. It only took a day for Nick to realise something was badly wrong.
Everything was juddering. I was very, very unsteady on my feet. The sweating had gone from my forehead down my back. My whole body was just dripping with sweat.
He recalls the moment in hospital. He was told what had poisoned him.
They said, you have this Novichok, this nerve agent in your blood system.
What was your reaction?
Scared, because it's the fear of the unknown, because it's such a dangerous thing to have in your system. Knowing how the other 2 were, or how badly they'd been affected by it, I was petrified.
It took 2 weeks for the investigators to discover that the nerve agent was put on the front door handle of the Skripals' home. But it took the death of Dawn Sturgis to work out how it got there. Her partner Charlie Rowley, who also became ill, had found the perfume bottle, used to smuggle the substance into Britain.
This is an exact replica of the Novichok bottle, the perfume bottle. There was a significant amount of Novichok contained within the bottle.
How many people could have been killed by that?
It's difficult to say, probably into the thousands.
Did it help you when you knew that it had been on the door handle and you didn't know that when you entered the house?
It helped in some ways. I, at that point, knew, well, it's not something that I've done wrong, because that was a big thing for me. Such a outrageous, dangerous way of doing something that it angered me as well.
But Nick, the Skripals and Charlie Rowley all survived the attack. Never seen before, moving CCTV images show the two Russian military intelligence officers, Anatoly Chepega and Alexander Mishkin, in Salisbury just after the attack. They're taking pictures, smiling, on their way to the train station and back to Moscow. It's unlikely they will ever appear in a British court.
I said all along I want to walk out of hospital with my wife, which we did in the end, and being able to do that, be able to walk out of hospital after 2.5 weeks of going through what I went through was incredible.
That was Detective Sergeant Nick Bailey ending that report by Jane Corbin of BBC Panorama. Now, the board of the Japanese carmaker Nissan has voted to sack its chairman.